The Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established amongst us for all generations. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker, bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the following papers. Number 1, the statement of Her Excellency, the President, on the economic sanctions, implementation of United Nations regulations on Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Order 2018. Number 2, the statement of Her Excellency, the President, on the economic sanctions, implementation of United Nations resolutions on the Islamic Republic of Iran, Order 2018. And papers number 3 and 4, the annual reports of the Police Service Commissions for the period January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2015, and January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2016. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. The audited consolidated financial statements of the Union Estate Electricity Generation Company Limited for the year ended December 31st, 2017, and that was paper number 5. 6, the annual report and audited financial statements of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center Management Company Limited for the year ended September 30th, 2018. 7, the report of the operations of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ended June 30th, 2018. 8, the consolidated audited financial statements of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards for the year ended September 30th, 2017. 9, the financial amendment regulations 2018. I beg to move that papers 5 to 6 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee and papers 7 to 8 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers 5 and 6 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee and papers 7 and 8 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. Paper number 10, the ministerial response of the Ministry of Finance to the 4th report of the Joint Select Committee on Finance and Legal Affairs on an inquiry into certain aspects of the national insurance system of Trinidad and Tobago. Paper number 11, the response of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to the 8th report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity on an examination of the perceived inequality faced by single fathers in Trinidad and Tobago with specific focus on custody matters, policies, and access to programs and services. Paper number 12, the response of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to the 9th report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality, and Diversity on an inquiry into the treatment of detainees and conditions at holding cells in Trinidad and Tobago police station. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Minister of Social Development and Social Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the Senior Citizens Pension Amendment of Schedule Order 2018. Thank you.
Minister of Trade and Industry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade and Industry, I have the honor to lay paper number 14, the Administrative Report of the National Flour Mills Limited for the year ended December 31st, 2017.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Works and Transport, I have the honor to lay paper number 15, the annual report of the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority for the year ended September 30th, 2018. Thank you very kindly.
Reports from committees.
Member for Diego Martin, Northeast.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to present the following reports. 1. The interim report of the Joint Select Committee established to consider and report on the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Bill 2018. And 4. The interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Bill 2016 in the 4th Session 11th Parliament.
Member for Tobago West.
Speaker, I have the honor to present the third report of the Joint Select Committee on Foreign Affairs on the circumstances surrounding Trinidad and Tobago's vote at the Permanent Council, Organization of American States, on the request by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica for a waiver of its contribution to the annual budget of the OAS on March 23, 2018.
Member for San Fernando West.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017 in the 4th Session 11th Parliament.
Member for Faisabad.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the following reports. The 13th report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on an examination into the administration of special healthcare programs in Trinidad and Tobago, and the 14th report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on an examination into the construction, maintenance, and refurbishment of state-owned or state-funded housing projects and units.
Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Faisabad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Health, in view of the 3 reported deaths as a result of the swine flu, could the Minister state the number of laboratory-confirmed swine flu cases in Trinidad and Tobago in the past 12 months?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and Happy New Year to all. The number of laboratory-confirmed influenza cases, influenza A, H1N1, 17, influenza A, H3N2, 2, and influenza B, 2. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Faisabad.
Thank you for those figures, Minister. And just to confirm that we're speaking about H1N1, which is the swine flu, could you indicate to the public when they should seek H1N1 testing?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the current protocols for a suspected case is based on the clinical case definition. Whether you have fever below 38 degrees or fever above 38 degrees, and you are very ill. But in the hospital, we treat all cases regardless of the threshold of 38 degrees, using nasopharyngeal swabs. So we treat all regardless of whether they are suspected or confirmed. The reports that we get, as you know, is mainly retrospective to build your database after the fact. Because if you wait for reports to confirm, the person would have died. So in the public healthcare system, we treat all regardless of the clinical case definition and regardless of whether the fever is above 38 degrees or below 38 degrees. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, do you have any indication of how many pregnant women would have received the flu vaccination in the current circumstances?
Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, vaccinating two classes of people in Trinidad and Tobago is very difficult, surprisingly. One, healthcare workers. You will be surprised to know how difficult it is to convince healthcare workers who are on the front line to accept the vaccine, and my former colleague will know that. And two, pregnant women. We have made a concerted effort in our antenatal clinics to advise the pregnant population to accept the vaccines. To date, we have vaccinated close to 2,000 pregnant women in the public healthcare system. 3 of those women who were not vaccinated almost died. And we had to get them over the hump by using very intensive care unit treatment. So I am grateful for the question, so I could speak directly to women who are pregnant. The vaccine is safe for you as a mother and safe for your fetus, because that is the main concern, as you know, as an obs and gyne specialist and my colleague from Caroni East. They are afraid that the vaccine will somehow cause birth defects. It does not, and the vaccine is safe for our pregnant women at any stage of pregnancy, from week 1 to week 40. And I want to reiterate that these vaccines are available free at public healthcare institutions. The country and the taxpayer has invested in 75,000 doses of vaccines. To date, we have given out close to about 17,000. We have another 25,000 on order. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Barataria Sanwan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister of Health, with regard to the 3 reported deaths as a result of swine flu, could the minister indicate whether there are sufficient Tamiflu tablets in the public health care system to combat a possible increase of cases?
Minister of Health.
Again, thank you very much to my colleague for asking a very topical question. The answer is yes. There are currently 13,670 Tamiflu tablets in the public healthcare system. If you average, you use about 10 per adult. It means immediately you could treat 1,367 patients immediately if you need to. We are keeping a very close watch on the stock, and if we need more stock, it is readily available from ParlView strategic stock in Panama within 24 to 48 hours. So there's absolutely no risk of running out of Tamiflu. We have currently, as I said, 13,670 tablets, which can treat 1,367 patients. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental, member for Barataria Sanwan.
Minister, could you indicate whether any pregnant woman in this country was refused the Tamiflu medication because of the fear of birth defects and died as a result of that?
Minister of Health.
There is no evidence that any pregnant woman has died of H1N1 for this current season. We offer Tamiflu to all the pregnant women that we are treating. The 3 that I have just mentioned were all given Tamiflu or other antiviral medication. And that is standard protocol. And those 3 that we were treating since last year to this year, I'm happy to report they have made, the first 2 have made full recovery. The 3rd one is currently being weaned off the ventilator, and we hope that she will follow the other 2 in having a full and successful recovery. But it is standard operating practice, and I have double-checked this with the Director of Women's Health, that we offer, now we can't force, that we offer all pregnant women Tamiflu or other antiviral medications, as we are doing for the current case at Mount Hope. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for
Last question, Minister. Could you indicate to the population, being a pharmacist in your own right, whether Tamiflu causes birth defects?
Minister of Health.
There is no evidence that I am aware of that Tamiflu causes birth defects. And that is an excellent question to ask, because it gives me, again, the opportunity to tell our pregnant women, our pregnant population, that neither the vaccine nor Tamiflu is deleterious to either you or the baby that you are carrying. And I want to urge the general population, 5 major categories: healthcare workers, our pregnant population, our obese diabetic population, children, and our patients who are immunocompromised, to make use of the free vaccines available in the public healthcare system. Thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Questions unnoticed. Questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 24 questions for oral answer. We'll be answering 23. We would like a 2-week deferral of question number 43. There are 3 written questions for written answer. We will be answering all 3. So, Madam Speaker, there are 27 questions. We will be answering 26. Thank you very kindly.
Member for Kamuta Mansanilla.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 12 to the Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 6,501 assessments had been conducted as at November 15, 2018, the deadline for the submission of requests for assessments and completed assessment forms. Just prior to the deadline, 639 requests for assessments were received. This figure was reduced after a check of our database for duplications. As at November 30, 2018, there were 348 outstanding site visits and assessments to be conducted. B, no. C, as at November 30, 2018, 5,523 checks had been distributed to flood victims in all the affected areas. The distribution is ongoing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, can you indicate when the assessments of flood victims will be completed?
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, we are working with a deadline of January 31st to complete all assessments.
Supplemental. Member for Karen East.
Minister, subsequent to your completion of your assessments, what time frame you estimate would be completed for those who you have assessed positively needing help? When would they be able to get their remuneration or help, financial help?
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, the ministry will attempt to complete them in the shortest possible time frame.
Nice answer.
Member for Kamuta Mansanilla.
Next question.
Question number 13.
Thank you. Question number 13 to the Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, 20 calls were received via the Older Persons Information Center 800 OPIC for assistance regarding the flooding that occurred during the period October 19th to 21st, 2018. B, the number of responses or follow-up action initiated by the ministry as a result of calls received was 20.
Supplemental. Member for Kamuta Mansanilla.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, can you indicate what areas that these calls originate from, please?
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, I do not have the specifics in terms of the areas each person would have called for from at this time.
Supplemental. Member for Kamuta Mansanilla.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, can you indicate what type of requests were in fact made during this period of flooding?
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, all calls received via the OPIC hotline was with respect to when their checks would have been processed and ready for distribution.
Member for Kamuta Mansanilla. Question number 18.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 18 to the Minister of Health.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Thank you to my colleague for the question. A total of 14,895 houses, 14,895, were sprayed or fogged in 36 areas in the following counties: St. George, St. Andrew, St. David, Caroni, St. Patrick, Nariva, Mayaro, Victoria. Answer to Part B, yes. Continuing monitoring and evaluation of these areas has already begun, and the necessary follow-up action has been initiated. Thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Question number 19, member for Kamuta Mantinella.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 19 to the Minister of Health.
Minister of Health.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I feel like a jack in the box today. Proposed reply. Yes, the flood victims who presented with asthmatic, respiratory ailments, and all other health-related issues were triaged and treated at the various hospitals and health centers. Thank you very much.
Question number 20, member for Kamuta Mantinella.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 20 to the Minister of Health.
Minister of Health.
Madam Speaker, answer to question number 20. A. During the period 22nd November to 26 October 2018, the following precautionary measures were taken to ensure that contaminated food was not being sold: national surveillance of markets, wayside vending, supermarkets, shops, vegetable stalls, restaurants, fast food outlets, and establishments impacted by floodwaters. A total of 17,449 premises were surveyed, covering all counties in Trinidad. Public health inspectors, in collaboration with vendors, used the voluntary method of disposal for contaminated items, and advice was given to self-regulate and separate foodstuff for insurance purposes, and continued health education to food handlers and vendors to properly dispose of contaminated foodstuff and to ensure proper sanitation of food premises. Thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental question, member for Kamuta Mantinella.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, can you indicate what process was used to identify the contaminated foods from goods that were not contaminated?
Sure.
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much. So the public health inspectors, under the direction of the Chief Medical Officer, will visit. They will, of course, look for physical damage. They will look for remnants of flooding, and they will do a close inspection of whether it's vegetables, canned goods, bottled water, and so on. On the judgment of the public health inspectors, items will be isolated and subsequently disposed based on established protocols. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Kamuta Mantinella.
Thank you. Based on your question, on your answer, Honourable Minister, how were these items disposed and where?
Minister of Health.
The items would have been picked up and taken and disposed of under the supervision of a public health inspector at, I suppose, one of the established sites.
Supplemental, member for Kamuta Mantinella.
Yes, thank you. In light of the fact that there was a media report of carrots being disposed on a wayside and not being disposed properly and assumed to be contaminated, can the minister indicate what would have happened in a case like that, seeing that there was not proper disposal in the first place? Thank you.
Minister of Health.
That is a matter that the Chief Medical Officer is looking at, and as soon as I have a report on that, I'll make it available to the honourable member. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Faisabad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 22 to the Minister of Health.
Minister of Health.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Answer to question number 22. The measures being taken to ensure that all geriatric homes are legally registered include: 1, the Ministry of Health has written to all 217 homes advising on the need to register in compliance with the Private Hospitals Act. 2, the Ministry has also provided, apart from the application form, the Private Hospitals Act itself, hard copy, guidelines and requisite requirements to ensure maximum compliance. To date, the Ministry of Health has received a total of 43 completed applications. 3, inspections for licensure and compliance have already begun on the above 43 homes, and another 30 are being urgently looked at by the Ministry, as identified by the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. These inspections are expected to be completed by January 30th, 2019, this month. And fourthly, follow-up calls and a reminder letter has been issued to the remaining 144 homes, and thereafter, legal recourse will be pursued under the Private Hospitals Act. The inspection team utilizes the skills and competencies of a multidisciplinary team, including members of the Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, the Ministry of Health, and the regional corporations under the remit of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. Thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental member for Faizabad.
Thank you, Minister. Can you indicate the time frame for compliance for these homes?
Sure. So there will not be a blanket time frame. What we are doing, we are dealing with each home based on an audit of their readiness to comply with the Private Hospitals Act. So each home, based on an audit, based on the visit, will be given a schedule of activities to be performed to bring them into compliance. So we hope to have all of this done in the shortest possible time, but there is no blanket date for all, because not each one will be in the same state of readiness to comply. But I give this honorable chamber the assurance that this is receiving urgent attention at the Ministry of Health. Thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental question, member for Karen East.
Honourable Minister, would there be visits, or are these visits conducted under the auspices of the Private Hospitals Board?
And the answer is yes, because the Chief Medical Officer is the chairman of the Private Hospitals Board, and he is in full control of this.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 23 to the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Madam Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. In response to Part A of the question, at this time, the Ministry has received 141 applications from the South region for financial assistance arising out of the flooding for the period 15 to 19 November 2018. In response to Part B, Madam Speaker, the process for paying financial assistance involves the receipt of the request, investigation of the site, processing within the ministry, auditing, a request for funding from the Ministry of Finance, and preparation of checks. The ministry is at the processing and audit stage on these 141 requests, and at the end of it, the payments would be made. And in response to Part C, Madam Speaker, any farmer who meets the requirements and satisfies the requirements of the ministry's criteria for financial assistance arising out of flooding will receive that assistance, and the claims can be made to the ministry. I thank you.
Supplemental member for Oropouche West.
Honourable Minister, you said 141 applications, but how many have been assessed to date?
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Madam Speaker, to repeat, the process involves the receipt of the applications. There have been 141 applications, site investigations, processing and audit, requests for funding, preparation of checks and payment. In respect of the 141 applications, the ministry is at the processing and audit stage.
Member for Oropouche West, supplemental.
So are you saying there is not a time date or time limit when this assessment will be done and payments made? Are you saying that?
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Madam Speaker, at the end of the process involves the receipt of the applications, the site investigation, processing and audit, requests for funding and preparation of checks. And at the end of that period, the checks will be in the hands of the recipients, and we are the processing and auditing period.
Member for Oropouche West.
Oh, thank you. Question number 24 to the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
What? Go on.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are two types of gate systems existing in Tulsa Trace site. The Corey River Saltwater Intrusion Gate. This is a 7-flap gate system built by the Ministry of Agriculture for irrigation purposes. They were originally designed for the prevention of saltwater intrusion into inland areas in an effort to support agriculture. These gates have not been functional over a long period of time. All 7 flaps of the gate systems were removed and are causing no restrictions to the flow of the Corey River. The frame structure has been earmarked for removal by the Ministry of Agriculture. The Blackwater Channel sluice gates. These gates service 2 culverts that facilitate runoff from the Blackwater Channel into the Corey River during low tide. During the high tide, they are closed off to prevent backwater effects from the Corey River. These gates are old but functional. However, during the severe flooding event of November 2018, floodwaters rose above the gate, rendering them non-functional. In 2018, Cabinet approved a program for the upgrade of pumps and gates throughout Trinidad. These gates are included under the program for upgrade and modernization in fiscal 2018-2019. Part B, the complete pump and gate systems along the Blackwater Channel is in its final stage of design. Tenders are to be invited and construction work are expected to commence in early 2019. The cost is not available at this time. Part C, non-functional floodgates impede the free flow of water and result in flooding and overtopping. Work has started on the raising of the earthen embankment in the area, which would alleviate the potential of overtopping. I thank you.
Supplemental, member for Oakwood West.
So you said you have procured pumps and gates. When is a likely date that these pumps and gates will be placed at the Tulsa Trace to prevent backflow to the Kura River?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, just to repeat, I said that Cabinet approved a program for the upgrade of pumps and gates throughout Trinidad and Tobago. The gates are included under the program for upgrade and modernization in fiscal 2018-2019, and the procurement, the design stage is at its final design stage, and tenders are to be invited in early 2019. I didn't say that we bought pumps and gates already.
Member for Oakwood West.
Thank you. Question number 25 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Commissioner of Police has advised that after a report of a missing person is made at a police station, the report is passed immediately to the anti-kidnapping unit, which is responsible for investigations of missing persons. The AKU forwards the relevant profile and picture for publishing and broadcasting in the media. The AKU submits information on outstanding investigations to the Homicide Bureau of Investigations. As a proactive measure to reduce the number of missing persons, the AKU has trained personnel who conduct interactive workshops and seminars. Topics cover missing persons, kidnapping, safety precautions, how to reduce the risk of becoming a missing person. These events are facilitated upon request by government agencies, foreign agencies, corporate entities, private sector, non-governmental organizations. The TTPS has been focusing more resources on treating with missing person cases, and our intelligence services have also been assisting in this regard.
Minister, can you state how many confirmed cases of missing persons currently exist?
I will allow that as a supplemental question to the question that asked. Member for Point of Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 28 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a sum of TT 2.419 billion has been paid to former Petrotrin workers to date. This figure comprises TT 1.9 billion in termination packages, TT 211 million for outstanding vacations, and TT 308 million in back pay.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister, supplemental. Out of the 1.9 billion that you mentioned for termination packages, could you state what percentage of this represents the total amount of termination package that has to be paid out?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Termination packages total 2.419 billion. It comprised of 1.9 in the actual termination calculation, but it also included outstanding vacation and back pay for the period 2011 to 2015.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Minister then state if the entire amount of termination packages have been paid out, or is there still any outstanding amount to be paid?
All termination packages payments have...
Member for point of order, I think based on the question asked and the question has answered, I believe that was answered. Okay?
Total amount spent, Madam Speaker.
Please ask the next question, supplemental question if you wish. Member for Obuchis.
Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, could you indicate whether or not Heritage Petroleum is embarking on a roadshow to raise $1 billion United States dollars?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Out of the sum, Minister, that you indicated, could you advise us also whether this represents also payments of 667 temporary employees at Petrotrin?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
It includes payments to non-permanent workers. However, the only outstanding payment to non-permanent workers is the calculation of a back pay, and that is expected to be completed by January 15th.
Member for point of order.
Number 29 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the estimated cost of the preservation of critical assets of the Petrotrin refinery is 14.5 million TT dollars.
Member for point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 30 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, two local expert consultants stroke companies who hired to manage the recruitment process. They are HRC Associates Limited and Progressive Recruitment Specialists. The cost of their services totaled TT 3,495,403.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
Minister indicate the two recruitment companies, how many employees they have recruited to date?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Just for the records, they haven't recruited anybody. They were providing logistical service for the recruitment process. However, the recruitment has largely been with Heritage. We have recruited 41 middle and senior managers, and most of those middle and senior managers will now form part of the interview panel to interview subordinate employees, and that process is ongoing.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
To the Minister of Energy, could you clarify, you just mentioned 41, but the Prime Minister had mentioned a couple of days ago 1,000 employees were hired at Heritage Petroleum.
I know the Prime Minister has said that. He said 1,000 people will be employed ultimately in the Heritage Company. But currently, it's 41 and the process continues.
Supplemental, member for Caroni East.
Mr. indicate what procurement methodology was used in getting these two companies to be on board. What procurement process was used in this?
What procurement process was used? I didn't
in the selection of these two companies.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
It was a selective tender process where several local consultancy firms that are engaged in that business were requested to make proposals, and these two companies were selected.
Supplemental, member for Carneys.
You give us a list of the companies and the value of their tender that was submitted.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
I doubt I can do that, but if the question is posed, we will consider it, because we will get the list of things, but to give you the actual quotation of the bid may be a problem.
For Naparima.
A question, thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 41 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, priority is not being given to building new roads over repairing the existing ones, since it is necessary to undertake both, which is what the ministry is doing. The development of new roads provides access to remote areas, thereby promoting growth and socio-economic developments. Additionally, new roads decrease congestion and travel time, resulting in increased productivity. The construction of new roads also stimulates the construction sector and the national economy. Madam Speaker, the repair of existing infrastructure can be classified as routine maintenance, periodic and backlog maintenance, rehabilitation or reconstruction based on the defects and level of distress. Routine road maintenance is undertaken on an ongoing basis in-house by the Highways Division of the Ministry of Works and Transport. This maintenance includes pothole patching, vegetation control, and repairs of sidewalks. Larger scale item of periodic maintenance such as road surface overlay, backlog maintenance such as replacements of cylinder crossing and landslip repairs are undertaken by the Highways Division via contracted services. This is also supplemented by the Bridges, Landslip and Traffic Management BLT program and the Pure Unit, whereby rehabilitation and reconstruction work is undertaken. I thank you.
Supplemental, member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Minister indicate in fiscal 2019, the budgetary allocation for new roads as opposed to repairs to existing roads?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question, member for Naparima. Member for Naparima.
Could the Minister indicate whether priority should be given to existing roads, given the dilapidated states of most of the roads in the country?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I did indicate that priority has not been given to building new roads over repairing the existing roads, because both is being undertaken at the same time, and I did give the reasons for it. But just for information for the honourable member, between 2016 and 2018, the Ministry of Works and Transport would have spent on rehabilitation of the existing road over $816 million. And over that same period, on new roads, we would have spent less than $50 million. So the priority is not on new roads, but to maintain the existing roads while we build new roads. Thank you.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 43.
Question number 43.
42 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the authority to address polygraph testing within the Customs Division falls within the remit of the Ministry of Finance. In the case of the Immigration Division, immigration officers who are assigned to key sensitive areas within the division are subject to polygraph testing. Additionally, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force consists of 4 formations: the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard, and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Reserves. All personnel of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force are subjected to a security vetting process as a means of pre-screening for employment or integrity tests in certain circumstances. The current system for integrity testing is the voice stress analysis test. The VSA is an internationally recognized and accepted system that is comparable to the polygraph test and has been in use by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force since 2012. At this time, no consideration is being given to move from this proven system to the polygraph system.
Supplemental, member for Africa.
The Minister give an indication of the percentages of officers that are subject to polygraph tests in the respective institutions that you have just named.
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, that is, in my view, an entirely different question and not one that I'm prepared or have the statistics here to answer, but I'm sure my friend knows the process and we can provide that going forward in the future.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 48 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industry.
Thank you once again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Petroleum Employees Pension Plan, commonly called PEPP, has met all its pension obligations to its retirees, including those who qualified for retirement benefits on December 1st, 2018. And to quote the Minister of Finance, let me repeat, all. In response to question B, PEPP is committed to ensuring that the plan can meet all its liabilities and or obligations, including the cost for its 20,000 plus retirees after December 1st, 2018.
Member for Couva South, supplemental.
Minister, can you confirm whether the last actual valuation of this pension plan showed a deficit of $2.73 billion?
Having regard to the question that was originally asked and the responses given, I rule that supplemental question out of order. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 49 to the Minister of Labour and Enterprise Development.
Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And a happy and blessed New Year to you, Madam Speaker, and all the honorable members of this House, including Oropuchis. Madam Speaker, the Registration, Recognition and Certification Board, popularly known as the RRCB, plays a critical role in promoting the integrity and credibility of the industrial relations systems of Trinidad and Tobago. Through its determination of the appropriate and recognized majority trade union, the RRCB is important in promoting the fundamental principles and rights at work, specifically that of freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining. Madam Speaker, the RRCB is established under Section 21 of the Industrial Relations Act, Chapter 8801, Section 21(3) and 4, and it states in part, that is 21(3), subject to this part, the minister shall appoint the chairman and other members of the board as follows. A, in the case of the chairman, a fit and proper person selected by the President of Trinidad and Tobago after consultation with such organizations or other bodies of persons as in his opinion, well in this case her opinion, are the most representative of workers and employers. And B states, in the case of the other members of the board, Roman 1, 3 members being persons nominated by such organizations or other bodies of persons as in the opinion of the minister are the most representative of workers. Roman 2, 3 members being persons nominated by such organizations or other bodies of persons as in the opinion of the minister are the most representative of employers. And Roman 3, 2 members being persons jointly nominated by the organizations or other bodies of persons referred to in subparagraphs 1 and 2.
I know this is the first, member for Carinese, I know this is the first sitting we have had since the Christmas break. I just would like us all to remember that we are back here and complying with the standing orders. Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Patience Carinese. Number 4, in respect of each member of the board other than the chairman, the minister shall in like manner appoint an alternate member, and any such alternate member may, with the approval of the chairman, act instead of the respective member. Madam Speaker, it should be noted that the term of the last board ended on February 24, 2018. Prior to the end of the term of the board, the Ministry of Labour and Small Enterprise Development undertook the necessary action with respect to obtaining nominations from the organizations considered to be the most representative of workers and employers, as well as in obtaining the joint nominees as outlined. As indicated above, under Section 21(3)(a) of the IRA, the selection of the chairman of the RLCB is under the responsibility of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I was advised by the Office of the President in October 2018 in response to my inquiry, written inquiry, that the process of consulting with the organizations and bodies which are the most representative of workers and employers in an effort to select a suitable chairman of the RRCB was in progress, and that I will be advised of the person selected as soon as this process is completed. In this regard, Madam Speaker, appointments to the RLCB will take place when the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has selected a chairman and Cabinet's approval of the membership of the board is subsequently obtained. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Minister advise this House as to how many matters are currently before the said board for determination?
Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development.
Madam Speaker, I am a bit taken aback by that question. I am not in a position to answer that question. That question is best directed to the RLCB.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question 50 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in an attempt to expedite the works at the Milton Presbyterian Primary School, the Ministry of Education had initially engaged the Water and Sewage Authority, WASA, to assist in rectifying the sewer issues at the school. However, the WASA has been experiencing difficulty in the procurement of the materials to complete the works, and as such, the ministry took the initiative to engage the National Maintenance, Training, and the Security Company Limited, MTS, to conduct the said works to address the issues. As a short-term measure, the school population of the Milton Presbyterian has been decanted into the California Government Primary School and the Couva South Government Primary School. Madam Speaker, the sewer repairs at the Milton Presbyterian Primary School are expected to be completed by January 25th, 2019, as every effort has been made to ensure that students have access to a quality education. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Speaker, to the Minister, taking into consideration that the repairs should be completed by the 25th of January. Mr. Minister, could you give this House a definitive date when the said school will be reopened?
Madam Speaker, as soon as the necessary works have been completed, the school will be reopened. Might I add, really, the school has not closed. It's just that the school has been decanted into two different schools. But as operates at the moment, the Milton Presbyterian Primary School is up and operating. Our students are accessing the quality education that we are determined to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Taking into consideration a number of parents of the Milton Presbyterian Primary School have lost their jobs in recent times, Mr. Minister, could you indicate if school bus transportation have been provided by the ministry to facilitate the transportation of these said 130 pupils to the California Government Primary School and also the Cova South Government Primary School?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, on previous occasions, I have had the opportunity to discuss this very issue with the member for Cova South, and I have indicated to him that this Ministry of Education has in fact provided the necessary transport for the students of that school. Thank you.
Honorable members, the time allotted to oral questions the time is now spent, and therefore, having received a request in accordance with Standing Order 2910, questions 53 to 58 shall be postponed for questioning to a later sitting, the next sitting.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers.
Minister in the Ministry of Attorney General and Legal Affairs.
Thank you very warmly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have been authorized by the Cabinet to issue the following statement. Madam Speaker, one of the many rights enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is the right to the enjoyment of property. At Section 4A of our Constitution, under the rubric of rights enshrined, it states, the right of the individual to life, liberty, security of the person, and enjoyment of property, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except by due process of law. Sadly, over many years, Madam Speaker, this constitutionally recognized and protected right has been severely challenged as law-abiding citizens and rent-paying tenants, even in the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation's apartments, and private homeowners are chased out of and denied re-entry into their apartments and dwelling houses by criminal elements employing the bully boy tactics of intimidation and violence. Madam Speaker, in one area in Port of Spain, police officers and soldiers went to a number of HDC apartments where they were forced to break the locks of 14 such apartments and detain persons who were illegally occupying these apartments. The brazen nature of these elements was exemplified when a few weeks later, police conducted a similar exercise and again had to remove several of the same persons from illegal occupation of the said apartments. Madam Speaker, we have heard reports of retired and senior citizens who work for their entire careers to acquire a home and who have been chased out, their cars firebombed, threats issued to flee or die. They are told in colloquial terms to ride out. Many feel helpless and do just that. There are many instances of these incidents across Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. The police often, when invited to take note and to get involved, see these as civil matters and have expressed feelings of powerlessness to treat with these matters in the way good sense and justice demands. Madam Speaker, a man's abode has always been known to be extremely important. As far back as 1604, the English judge and jurist Sir Edward Coke Edward Cook, acknowledged in the Summons case, 77 English Reports, page 194, that there were limits on the manner in which officials such as sheriffs could enter a person's house to issue writs. But he also declared, and I quote, that the house of everyone is to him as his castle and fortress, as well as his defense against injury and violence, and as his repose. Sir Edward's legal principle was condensed over many centuries and today is recognized in the old adage, every man's house is his castle. Madam Speaker, the notion of a person and his family being unable to occupy and live peacefully in their home is unacceptable. The government sought to address this unlawful situation, and a reference was given to the Law Reform Commission to develop a policy and draft legislation to treat with these occurrences. The constitutionally enshrined right, as described earlier, is guaranteed protection against the state, since only the state could infringe such a right. As against private persons and criminals, new law is required. Subsequently, this reference was expanded to include a comprehensive review of Trinidad and Tobago's Trespass Act, Chapter 1107, a piece of legislation which was originally passed in 1852 and last amended in 1910 and 1936. Madam Speaker, as part of the review exercise, lacunae in the existing Trespass Act were identified and the legislation of other jurisdictions were examined or was examined. These included the United Kingdom, Canada, Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana, and the Cayman Islands. The outcome of this exercise was the drafting of the Trespass Amendment Bill 2018, which was considered by the Legislative Review Committee of the Cabinet and has now been approved by the Cabinet. Madam Speaker, it should be noted that the Trespass Amendment Bill introduces two new criminal offenses, namely forcible entry and forcible detainer. Madam Speaker, forcible entry will occur where a person who uses force, threats, or intimidation to enter land or dwelling house, which is in the lawful possession of another person, in order to expel that person and take possession of the land or dwelling house, and does so otherwise than in pursuance of an order of a court or other lawful authority. This offender is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $100,000 and to imprisonment for 15 years. Madam Speaker, forcible detainer will occur where any person who being unlawfully or in or upon any land or dwelling house maintains or attempts to maintain his possession or occupation thereof, and does so by force or in a manner that would render the use of force as the only reasonable or practicable means of recovering lawful property of the land or dwelling house. This offender is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $100,000 and to imprisonment for 15 years. Madam Speaker, in addition to these two new, spanking new criminal offenses, the Trespass Amendment Bill will seek to modernize the archaic Parent Act by increasing a number of the existing penalties, inserting new definitions, and provide for the issue of regulations. The law here introduced is primarily designed to treat with a new, discernible, antisocial criminal behavior in our society, which the government finds wholly unacceptable. This is the government's response. I thank you.
I've been advised that it is agreed that the Prime Minister shall speak until the completion of his statement. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I would like to thank members of this House for the facility extended. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to provide the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago with a factual account of the government's successful procurement of 2 passenger fast ferries from the Australian shipbuilders Incat Australia Pty Limited and Austal Limited, and 2 Cape-class patrol vessels from Austal for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Madam Speaker, During the margins of the Caribbean Commonwealth Leaders Meeting in July 2017, the Honorable Julie Bishop, MP, who was then the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Australia, invited me as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to visit Australia during the last quarter of 2017. However, due to conflicting work schedules, I was unable to lead a delegation to Australia in 2017. Madam Speaker, the population would undoubtedly recall that it was during 2017 that a number of issues arose with respect to the provision of the inter-island sea service between Trinidad and Tobago. And by way of background, Madam Speaker, in 2006, Trinidad and Tobago acquired 2 used fast ferries to service the sea bridge, the TT Express and the TT Spirit. By 2017, the TT Express was 20 years old, having been built in 1997, and the TT Spirit was 15 years old, having been built in 2002. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, these vessels were not properly maintained during the period of 2010 to 2015. And on many occasions, the vessels missed essential dry docking and maintenance servicing dates. Due to their age, wear and tear, and the lack of proper maintenance, the TT Spirit and the TT Express inevitably began having serious operational problems in 2016 that negatively affected their ability to sail and to provide the sea bridge, and thereby the sea bridge was badly affected in 2017. As a result of these pressing issues, the government took a decision that it was time to replace our aged passenger ferries and to look into purchasing new fast ferries. This was also a priority at a time when the government's financial situation was extremely challenging. 2 of the best international shipbuilders, and in particular fast ferry builders, are Incat and Austal from Australia, with whom we already had developed commercial relationships. Furthermore, we in Trinidad and Tobago are very familiar with both Incat and Austal vessels. Both the Trinidad and Tobago Express and the Trinidad and Tobago Spirit are Incat fast ferries. The water taxi service en route between Port of Spain and San Fernando is serviced by Austal vessels. The Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard has 6 fast patrol vessels that are Austal built. With this in mind, Madam Speaker, having regard to the invitation of the Australian government for me to visit Australia, I requested a bilateral meeting with the then Australian Prime Minister, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull MP, in the margins of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London in April of 2018. At CHOGM, both Minister Dennis Moses, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and I met with the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Turnbull, and the Australian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Bishop, in the margins. At this meeting, I informed the Australian Prime Minister that the government of Trinidad and Tobago was interested in procuring 2 new fast ferries. I also told him that we had issue in securing our borders via sea, and I asked whether there was anything that the Australian government could do to assist Trinidad and Tobago in fixing these problems, which were priority items in our country. Madam Speaker, right then and there, the Australian Prime Minister agreed that Australia will do what it can to assist. And for this, Madam Speaker, I want, on behalf of a grateful people of Trinidad and Tobago, to thank the government and people of Australia for coming to the aid of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Turnbull informed me that his government had recently taken a decision to establish a specific $1 billion fund called a defense grant fund for the financing of the purchase of military equipment from Australia, and that Austal built military defense vessels, and a purchase of such vessels would qualify for funding under this new fund that he had established. The Australian Prime Minister invited me to have a working visit to Australia, whereby visits could be made to both INCAT and Austal, as well as meeting with EFIC, the Australian government's export credit agency. EFIC arranges financing for the purchase of Australian products for export, including marine vessels. Madam Speaker, the purchase of the 4 water taxis and the 6 fast patrol vessels from Austal in Trinidad and Tobago were already financed by a loan from EFIC. By note verbal number P11/2018, dated May 4, 2018, from the Australian High Commission in Port of Spain, it was confirmed that there was an invitation from me as Prime Minister and the delegation to have a working visit to Australia, and it was agreed that such a visit could take place for a week from May 20th, 2018. By Cabinet Minute number 744 of May 9, 2018, Cabinet agreed that I lead a delegation on an official visit to the People's Republic of China from May 14th to the 19th, 2018, followed by a working visit to Australia from May 20 to 27th, 2018. It was agreed that Minister Moses, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and Minister in the Ministry of National Security, and Minister Stuart Young, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, and Minister in the Office of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, form part of the delegation accompanying me on this trip to China and Australia. Madam Speaker, it was announced in May 2018 that I would be going to China and Australia, and then during the course of the visits, on an almost daily basis, media releases were provided from the Office of the Prime Minister as to what meetings took place, with whom, and the level of detail was given as to what was discussed. This has been a feature of my stewardship as Prime Minister. Whenever I go on official visits overseas, I insist that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are informed via official media releases, which include photographs and sometimes video, what meetings I have attended, with whom, and to discuss what. My visit to Australia was no different. During my working visit to Australia, Madam Speaker, the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Australia provided the Trinidad and Tobago delegation with an official protocol regime and liaison officers who accompanied the delegation to every meeting that was held in Australia. The Australian government arranged for us to visit the shipyards at both INCAT and Austal, and whilst there, we met with the officials of each company. On May 21st, 2018, Madam Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago delegation visited the Austal shipyard in Perth and toured their facilities. During this visit, we were able to see the construction of a fast ferry that was taking place, and we were also able to tour a Cape-class patrol vessel owned by the Australian Border Patrol. After the tour, a presentation was made by Austal with respect to the type of fast ferry they would be able to build for our sea bridge. They also presented on the Cape-class patrol vessel and other facilities that they have. Discussions were held with Austal about repairing the 6 fast patrol Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard vessels and getting them serviceable. The possibility of a public-private partnership project to establish a ship servicing industry or dockyard was also discussed. After our meeting with Austal, the Office of the Prime Minister put out a press release along with photographs indicating that the delegation had met with Austal. Madam Speaker, I lay a copy of these releases on the table for the record. The release was titled, "Government Actively Looking for the Best Marine Vessels to Service Trinidad and Tobago." How much clearer or how much more transparent could a government be than that, Madam Speaker? Not only did we inform the public of who we met with, what we did and discussed, but we also alerted the country to to the fact that we were actively looking for the best marine vessels for Trinidad and Tobago. There was no secrecy. On May 23, 2018, the Trinidad and Tobago delegation traveled to Tasmania, where we visited the INCAT shipyard. We were able to tour construction of one of their state-of-the-art fast ferries and their shipyard. The delegation, accompanied by the representatives of the Australian government, held discussions as to the type of vessel that could be built for Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, Madam Speaker, it is to be recalled that the TT Express and the TT Spirit are INCAT fast ferries. Again, after this meeting with INCAT, the Office of the Prime Minister put out a media release along with photographs. I lay a copy of this release on the table for the record, Madam Speaker. The release was titled, Prime Minister Meets with INCAT. On May 24, 2018, I met with, amongst other people, the Prime Minister of Australia, Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, MP. There was also a meeting with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honourable Julie Bishop, and the Minister of Trade, the Honourable Steve Siabau, and I was accompanied by Ministers Moses and Young. At this meeting, we discussed the procurement of fast ferries and 2 Cape-class patrol vessels and the financing of these units through EFIC and our accessing the Defence Fund. A release was sent out by the Office of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago on May 24, 2018. And again, I lay a copy on the table for the record. During the course of my visit to Australia, we also met with officials from EFIC and discussed Trinidad and Tobago's interest in procuring 2 passenger ferries and 2 Cape-class patrol vessels for the Coast Guard. EFIC officials said that Trinidad and Tobago's credit rating was very good, and as we had always serviced our existing credit facilities with EFIC. Upon my return to Trinidad, Madam Speaker, I held a press conference and informed the public of the details of the visits to China and Australia, and I did state that we had visited both Austal and INCAT, and we would be inviting them to make competitive proposals for the supply of new fast ferries, and that we were interested in Cape-class vessels to strengthen our border security. The government invited both INCAT and Austal to make proposals for the supply of fast ferries, and Austal was invited to make a proposal for the supply of military vessels. Both companies provided their competing proposals. During the period of June 24th to July 1st, 2018, a 2-member delegation from the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, TTDF, visited Australia on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The delegation comprised Rear Admiral Hayden Pritchard, Chief of Defence Staff, and Lieutenant Commander Rajesh Budu, Engineering Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. The purpose for their visit was to conduct an assessment of Austal's Cape-class patrol boat and to determine its suitability for use by the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Focus was placed upon the vessel's sustainable and cost-effective maintenance, which would bring forth optimum utilization. The TTDF produced a report dated July 3, 2018 on the Cape-class patrol vessels and found that the vessel would be quite appropriate for operations within the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. And Madam Speaker, I want to put in quotation, quote, would be quite appropriate for operation within the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. That was the recommendation of the experts of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. It was recommended that 2 Cape-class patrol vessels should be acquired as they could contribute significantly to and enhance the TTCG's operations. Cabinet by Minute number 1021 of June 21, 2018, established a Cabinet-appointed evaluation committee to review the proposals received from INCAT and Austal. The composition of the committee was as follows. The Honourable Stuart Young, Minister of Communications, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, and Minister in the Office of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs as chairman. The Honorable Major General retired Edmund Dillon, Minister of National Security. Senator the Honorable Dennis Moses, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and Minister in the Ministry of National Security. Senator the Honorable Robert Lee Hunt, Minister of Public Utilities. Colonel retired Lyle Alexander, Chairman of the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Steve Gardner, Deputy Chairman of National Infrastructure Development Company, NIDCO. Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, Director, Legal Services, Minister of Works and Transport, Ministry of Works and Transport. Captain Sujit Singh, Deputy Director and Technical Head, Marine Technology Corporation Center, UTT. Mr. Demijohn Cruikshank, Tobago businessman. INCOT and hostile representatives presented their proposals to this Cabinet-appointed Evaluation Committee on July 11, 2018, and the committee met on July 13, 2018 to evaluate the proposals. The committee also utilized the expertise of Chief Engineer Mr. Isikeli Waka from UTT in the evaluation process. The TTDF interrogated hostile with respect to the military vessels. The committee compared the technical specifications, capacity, and cost, and found that both hostile and INCOT proposed solutions capable of adequately meeting the needs of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The hostile proposal was for a 100-meter vessel, and the INCOT proposal was for a 94-meter vessel. Hostile also proposed a joint venture arranged with the government for the establishment of service and maintenance facilities for all vessels, as well as to help create a maritime service industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Based on the recommendations of the Cabinet-appointed committee, by Cabinet Minute 1234 of July 26, 2018, the Cabinet agreed inter alia to the acquisition of 2 fast ferry catamarans to service the inter-island sea bridge and 2 patrol vessels for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard to patrol the offshore areas of Trinidad and Tobago. The acquisition of 1 INCOT 100-meter vessel and 1 hostile 94-meter vessel and 2 hostile naval Cape-class patrol vessels. And that the government would pursue financing arrangement with EFIC Australia and financing from the government of Australia to fund the 2 naval Cape-class patrol boats. It was also agreed that the purchase of the 2 fast ferries should be done by NIDCO. Madam Speaker, NIDCO proceeded to retain the services and expertise of the international law firm Haynes & Boone, CDG, LLP of London, United Kingdom, to provide it with legal support to negotiate with both hostile and INCOT for the purchase of the said vessels. A committee comprising the following individuals engaged in negotiations with INCOT and hostile during the period August 27 to 29, 2018. Herbert George, Chairman of NIDCO. Stephen Gardner, Deputy Chairman of NIDCO. Steve Garib Singh, President Acting of NIDCO. Tara John, Senior Legal Officer, NIDCO. Demijohn Cruikshank, businessman. Colonel retired Lyle Alexander, Chairman of the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Isikeli Waka, UTT, and Marvin Gonzalez, Director, Legal Services, Ministry of Works and Transport. Mr. Andreas Filcher, partner at Haynes & Boone, CDG of London, provided legal support during the negotiations with hostile and INCOT. Over the 3-day period, this committee discussed several issues, inclusive of clarifying the technical, operational, and maintenance requirements, risk assessment, including financial risks, commercial issues surrounding the price proposals, proposed delivery dates, and other contractual issues. NIDCO agreed, Madam Speaker, to a number of principles with INCOT and hostile, including that NIDCO would purchase from hostile a 94-meter high-speed passenger cargo roll-on, roll-off catamaran ferry with a capacity of approximately 930 passengers, inclusive of 132 VIP seats 150 cars with accommodation for trucks, and a prisoner holding cell for up to 10 persons. The speed of the vessel would be 37.5 knots. The cost of this vessel was estimated at $68 million US, with additional costs of $5.550 million US for pricing adjustment, accelerated delivery, and refund guarantee, bringing the total of the hostile 94 million vessel to $73,550,000 US, and to the purchase from INCAT of a 100-meter high-speed passenger cargo roll-on, roll-off catamaran ferry with a capacity of approximately 1,000 persons, inclusive of 224 VIP seats, 239 cars with accommodation for trucks, and a prisoner holding cell for up to 10 persons. The speed of this vessel would be 39.5 knots. The cost of this vessel was estimated at $72,977,000 US. Cabinet by minute number 1495 of September 6, 2018, agreed inter alia to the engagement of Hostel to design, build for, and deliver to NIDCO a 94-meter high-speed passenger cargo roll-on, roll-off catamaran ferry at an estimated cost of $73,550,000, inclusive of booking fees and design services. And to the engagement of INCAT to design, build for, and deliver to NIDCO a 100-meter high-speed passenger cargo roll-on, roll-off catamaran ferry at an estimated cost of $72,977,000, inclusive of booking fees. Madam Speaker, NIDCO and the Ministry of National Security have proceeded to order the 2 fast ferries and the 2 Cape-class patrol vessels. And the contracts for the purchase of these vessels have been executed and monies paid in accordance with the material contractual arrangements. As of January 7, 2019, NIDCO paid Hostel the sum of $8.148 million US, with US 7.148 being the 10% down payment for the fast ferry, and a $1 million US being the scheduled acceleration payment. Likewise, as of January 7, 2019, NIDCO paid INCAT the sum of $15,595,400 US, with $14,595,400 US being the 20% down payment for the fast ferry, and $1 million US being the booking fee. Only today, a further sum of $5,361,000 has been paid to Hostel for the ordering of the engines for the fast ferries. The government is pursuing financing arrangement with EFIC for these marine vessels. Madam Speaker, as is to be expected, there are further payment sums which will become due under the contractual arrangement going forward until the completion of the vessels. These are the details and chronology of how the 2 fast ferries and the 2 Cape-class patrol vessels were procured for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As is evident, at every step of the way, this government has been transparent in how it has conducted itself. There have been several levels of evaluation and negotiations with INCAT and Hostel, and at every step of the way, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has informed the public of its actions and decisions, unlike what transpired between 2010 and 2015. The government between 2010 and 2015 did not inform the public that it was procuring vessels for the TT Coast Guard from Damen. There was no transparency in the procuring of the vessels from Damen, and in fact, financing was not even properly in place for the payment for the vessels ordered from Damen. It fell to this government to arrange financing and payment for these vessels from Damen after they were delivered, and we were never even told they were ordered until they arrived in Trinidad and Tobago. Worse yet, Madam Speaker, was the procurement of CG-60, the Chinese vessel purchased for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. There was no proper evaluation as to suitability of the vessel for the TT Coast Guard, and there was no financing in place that was proper for the payment of the vessel. As far as we are aware, the Chinese vessel was procured by the former Prime Minister on a whim, seeing a vessel in China and declared, quote unquote, that she wanted one like that. It also fell to this government to determine financing arrangements and to complete negotiations and pay for this vessel after it was delivered to us here. So, Madam Speaker, to have the opposition questioning the procurement of the 2 ordered fast ferries and the 2 Cape-class patrol vessels from Incat and Austral, and to have them bring the country into disrepute by writing to the Attorney General of Australia, making completely unfounded and spurious allegations, is quite difficult to swallow, knowing full well how they conducted themselves before. The procurement process used by the government in the present circumstances can withstand all and any scrutiny and is untainted. It is the view of this government, and should also be a concern to all citizens of this country, that there are persons in and out of office in Trinidad and Tobago who would sully the country's image and its name purely for personal political advantage here in Trinidad and Tobago. This government condemns the invitation to the Australian opposition to oppose this assistance by their government and the UNC's approach to the Attorney General's office in Australia in their futile attempt to embroil the government of Australia and the people of Trinidad and Tobago in a contrived political fabricated scandal without a shred of information or evidence to support such misconduct. Madam Speaker, the level of transparency associated with this watershed business relationship between Australia and Trinidad and Tobago is largely unknown in the conduct of public business in our country and should be viewed as a template for future dealings. Madam Speaker, as such, this government is proud of our diplomatic success, which has resulted in the benefits I have outlined here today. And once again, I wish to thank the government and people of Australia for their outstanding support and recognition of Trinidad and Tobago as a valuable trade and business partner in the Commonwealth of Nations. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Oropuchis.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, pursuant to 24(4). To the Honourable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, notwithstanding the kind supply of pictures and videos, could you confirm that before all the processes took place to check out of the boats, there was no open and competitive tendering or procurement for the purchase of passenger vessels to be acquired from Incat and Austral? And this deal should also be seen in the past tense as the Sandals project.
Madam Speaker, there is no requirement. There's no requirement to inform oneself in proceeding on something that one is interested in. There was no requirement for prior public invitation to any person restraining the government of Trinidad and Tobago from examining and looking at possibilities to fix problems in Trinidad and Tobago. None whatsoever obligation.
All explanations, introduction of bills, the Trespass Amendment Bill 2019 in the name of the Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a Minister.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the interim report of the Joint Select Committee established to consider and report on the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Bill 2018, I beg to move that the committee be allowed an extension to complete its work and submit a final report by February 28th, 2019. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the Joint Select Committee established to consider and report on the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Bill 2018 be allowed an extension to complete its work and submit a final report by February 28, 2019. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017, I beg to move that the committee be allowed an extension of 5 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by May 31st, 2019. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is, be it resolved that the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017 be allowed an extension of 5 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by May 31st, 2019. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? I think the ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Bill 2016, I beg to move that the committee be allowed an extension of 5 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by May 31st, 2019. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is, be it resolved that a Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Bill 2016 be allowed an extension of 5 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by May 31st, 2019. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it.
Public business, government business, bills, second reading.
The Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that an act to amend the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011, Act number 20 of 2011, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, there are many issues plaguing our country. These issues are rooted in the quality of living of our citizens. The seriousness of the effect of crime, the responsibility of society to grapple with that is inexorably connected to the pace at which justice moves. Trinidad and Tobago has had a system of justice in operation for many years. Indeed, upon becoming a crown colony, we inherited the English laws. And, Madam Speaker, the consequence of doing crime goes along with a tag phrase of saying, you must do the time. Regrettably, in our country, we are one of the most unfortunate examples of a lack of consequence as it relates to crime. It's true that this government has taken a very bold and progressive step in fulfilling one of its mandates, its commitment and contract to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because we said that in arresting the issue of crime, put a commissioner of police to lead and let the crime manage itself by having the police respond to it. That has now been accepted by this country as one of the most important and progressive steps that any government could have done. But, Madam Speaker, on the other side of that equation, on the other side of the special operations response, on the other side of the lightening of police activity as people want to see it, and the confidence that they want to feel, the other side of that has to be the thunder of the courtroom delivering a consequence. After lightning strikes, thunder ought to roll. And so, Madam Speaker, this government has invested a significant amount of effort in ensuring that the criminal justice system begins to work. I'll come in detail, perhaps after contributions of members opposite, to connect the dots of the various pieces that we've had moving, be they the creation of new courts, divisions, the introduction of rules, the amplification of judicial capacity, whatever they may be, as I will come to in greater detail. The critical point is that the criminal justice system is currently premised upon this bill. Why do I say so? Let's start, Madam Speaker, by reflecting upon the statistics. What are we as a country dealing with? Why is there no thunder after the lightning? Our citizens ask. Where are the people in handcuffs? Our citizens ask. Where do people make jail? Our citizens ask. Well, it's rooted in the process of preliminary inquiries. You see, we have something called a preliminary inquiry procedure. That preliminary inquiry procedure actually is rooted in the year 1555 in the Marian Statutes. In the year 1555, 464 years ago, the inquisitorial side of preliminary inquiries was born. In 1836, we had the Prisoners' Council Act, that's 183 years ago. In 1848, we had the Indictable Offences Act, called the Sir John Gervais Act. 102 years ago, however, we have what we have born in Trinidad and Tobago as our experience. We have brought into law by Act number 12 of 1917, the Indictable Offences Preliminary Inquiry Act. Preliminary inquiries is a fancy way of saying that we allow an accused two purposes. On the first hand, we allow the accused to be aware of his case. And on the second hand, we allow the accused to probe and counter or test that case. And if that case has sufficient evidence, it then moves to a trial in the High Court. So you go under the Indictable Offences Preliminary Inquiry Act, Chapter 1201, you go to the Magistrates Court. In the Magistrates Court, a case is brought by way of preliminary inquiry. If the magistrate thinks that there's sufficient evidence, then the case moves to the Assizes or the High Court. If there is no prima facie case, then the matter is discharged, and the accused goes his way without, of course, prejudice to the fact that the DPP may come again. So, Madam Speaker, in our society, this Preliminary Inquiries Act, we have had, in the parent law, the existing law, we've had 21 attempts to amend the law coming to the year 2014. Madam Speaker, we came as a government in 2017. We came via the Indictable Offences Pretrial Procedure Bill of 2017. We came to this House. This government came and offered a solution which included the abolition of preliminary inquiries and the introduction of a system by which the DPP has the ability to say either you're going indictably straight to the High Court or you are going summarily to the Magistrates Court. We came with that. We did that on the back of the Constitution, in particular Section 90 of the Constitution, where the DPP has three powers enshrined in our Constitution: the power to start proceedings, the power to take over proceedings, or the power to discontinue proceedings. And we came forward. But, Madam Speaker, in the course of debate in the Senate, and in looking at the objections that the profession, the legal profession in particular, volunteered as to taking what was viewed to be a too radical approach at that point of going to the DPP, we stopped and we went back to consultation. In fact, we have had a significant amount of consultation, and that consultation, for the record, Madam President, Madam Speaker, if I may put it, includes the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Gilbert Peterson as position in the bar representation, the judiciary, the Criminal Bar Association, the Law Association, and several individuals who wrote in. Madam Speaker, that was also added to comments that came in the period 2011 straight through to 2015, including comments by the criminal bar in 2011 on the legislation then tabled, reports coming from the Ministry of Justice, reports coming from the positions in the 2005 amendments. But very importantly, Madam Speaker, we stopped, and I wish to say the Office of the Attorney General retained Mrs. Pamela Elder, Senior Counsel, to do a comprehensive analysis of the position of legislative reform for the abolition of preliminary inquiries. And I wish to thank Mrs. Elder for the excellent work that she has produced in providing valuable information. So, Madam Speaker, in 2017, having done that bill, having taken that exercise, after taking the consultative approach, after taking detailed analysis, we in fact prepared amendments to the 2017 bill. The amendments to the 2017 bill were ready to go. But, Madam Speaker, we did not sit idly by whilst we were legislating. What we did was to engage in a process of legislative coordination. Whilst the preliminary inquiry abolition was being tabled, whilst it was being discussed, we took the opportunity to get into the criminal justice system. It's now as a matter of record that specifically we laid and operationalized and saw the training of the judiciary and the bar in relation to the criminal proceedings rules. Those criminal proceedings rules came in April 6, 2016. We created the Family and Children Division. We created the Criminal and Traffic Division. We saw the 77% increase in judicial capacity by way of amendments to 2 pieces of law. We moved the judicial capacity from 36 to 64. We moved the appellate capacity from 12 to 15. And very importantly, we caused the creation of offices of masters of the High Court. Rules of the High Court, divisions and backlogging arrangements, and masters of the High Court. So let me come back to the point that I just went on a tangent, and that is back to statistics. Where are we? Statistically, Madam Speaker, I want to put onto the record, as we stand here today, there are 43,109 preliminary inquiries outstanding. Let me repeat that. 43,109 preliminary inquiries outstanding. Madam Speaker, the average disposition rate coming out of the magistracy and the High Court, let me put this onto the record. In the Supreme Court, we look at the statistics, and I'm going to give you a category of indictable offenses: sexual offenses, murder, offenses against the person, manslaughter, attempted murder, firearms, dangerous drugs. Listen to this. In sexual offenses, of a total of 470 offenses, indictable offenses, yet to be tried, 149 of them, or 31%, are over 10 years. What does that mean for the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Rape victims, families of victims, accused who may be innocent, families of both, prosecutors, witnesses, all have to traipse up and down to the courts to relive that experience on a weekly, if not daily basis for over 10 years. Murder, 84 indictable matters out of a total of 327 are outstanding. Offenses against a person, 219 out of 497, or 44% of offenses against the person are over 10 years old. Firearms, 131 out of 235 are over 10 years old. That's 55.7%. Dangerous drugs, 63 out of 119 are over 10 years old. Other offenses, 515, or 65% of them out of 797 are over 10 years old. Let me give one example, of course not running into rules which offend the standing orders. The largest corruption case in the history of this country is now going on 19 years from the construction of the event which caused the corruption cases. 19 years, we are still in preliminary inquiry. In that particular case, the Piarco Airport inquiry, the Piarco Airport matter, I can say elsewhere in the world, in the United States of America, people have been convicted, served time, forfeited assets, and have been released from incarceration already. So, Madam Speaker, statistically and by way of legitimate aim in this bill, we cause the focus upon the need for the abolition of the delay. And that delay is squarely rooted in one thing: the ability to cross-examine people at preliminary inquiries, and the ability to apply judicial review on the back of that. And Madam Speaker, what it translates to is that the very wealthy people in this country, the well-heeled people in this country, or another cohort, people that can intimidate witnesses over time, murder them, threaten them, those cohorts, those categories of people have an upper hand on the citizenry of this country. So, Madam Speaker, we come today now, very importantly, we are saying via this bill, let us return to something upon which there was unanimous support. In 2011, Mr. Justice Herbert Volney left the bench. In 2010, as a sitting judge, went directly to the government via a UNC candidacy, passing through an election, quite a surprising event, became Minister of Justice, and in 2011, Minister Herbert Volney came to the Parliament with the administration of justice, private indictables matter, and brought to this country Act number 20 of 2011. That was a 3/5 majority bill. In it, we sought to adopt the St. Lucia model of preliminary inquiry abolition. We said, let us adopt a system where you would take matters, take them to a master of the High Court. When you get to a master of the High Court, passing through the magistrate if necessary, the master will effectively case manage through an initial hearing, as is found in Section 8 of the bill, of the Act, going through a sufficiency hearing, as is found in Section 11 of the Act. The master would then say, let us send this matter directly for indictment before the High Court, or send the summary matters to the court below, which is the magistracy. This particular position would have resulted in trials happening in the High Court or in the magistrate's court without the need for preliminary inquiry. This particular act, Act number 20 of 2011, is known to the population of Trinidad and Tobago as something of a unique kind. It is the parent act to the greatest scandal ever perpetuated on the people of Trinidad and Tobago, which was the birth of Section 34. That particular scandal and abuse of the population and the people was met with by way of an act to repeal the proclamation of Section 34, which was an act of Parliament which came in 2012. And, Madam Speaker, we then, after this particular act, after the Section 34 scandal, we went directly into a 2014 version of preliminary inquiry abolition, which was to go for committal proceedings based on the Antigua model, which was to say, go back to the magistrates and let them treat with committal proceedings. Why have we come back to this law? Why have we sought to come to this law, which is now before us? Because, Madam Speaker, as I said before, we worked around the systems while we were dealing with the technical law. And in working with the systems, we are now able to say to this country, we bring this law forward because we put onto the record all of the matters which were given by way of undertaking by a UNC Minister of Justice and a UNC Cabinet in the 2011 Act. The undertaking given by Minister of Justice Herbert Volney was three things. This act will not be proclaimed unless there are courts created. This act will not be proclaimed unless there are rules of court created pursuant to Section 32 of the Act. And this act will not be proclaimed unless masters are hired. Madam Speaker, in this bill, we see an amendment to Section 27 of the Act, as we propose in this bill. In Section 27 of the Act, we are causing an amendment to allow for the manner in which one can apply for discharge on the ground of delay. But if I come to the rationale for the proclamation of Section 34 and how it is tied into this particular law, Madam Speaker, may I just ask what time precisely I must end?
52:17.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I want to come to this very quickly, what I will say, Madam Speaker, is that we are able to return to this law because, as I've said before, we have proclaimed and put into operation the criminal proceedings rules on the 6th of April 2016. We have hired masters of court via the judiciary. In fact, yesterday there was an article contained in the Trinidad Newsday by Jeff Myers. It's an article, photo Jeff Myers, article by Azad Ali. Training starts on clearing backlog and the training of newly appointed masters. And Madam Speaker, you must be aware that we have also caused the creation of a criminal division. So we have rules, we have masters who are being trained, and we also have courts because we have proclaimed the criminal division, which allows for the creation of courts under Section 24 of that Act. That proclamation happened on the 1st of December 2018. But Madam Speaker, I want to take us very quickly. Rooted in the amendments to Clause 27 of this bill is a very important matter where we have something which I must bring to the population's attention. Madam Speaker, when we saw the turn away from the Parent Act, that is the 2011 Act, the Section 34 Parent Law, it's important to understand why it is now safe to come back to that law. When we saw the turn away from that law by the proclamation of Section 34, we were told by the UNC government that the proclamation was as a result of a deceit by Justice Volney. That was what was said to us. Justice Volney, in a statement by the Prime Minister, then Mrs. Prasad Bisesta, the member for Siparia, Justice Volney was fingered and fired as having deceived the Cabinet. And Madam Speaker, it is only now with access to the Cabinet notes and Cabinet minutes that I am able to put this onto the public record for the first time, Madam Speaker, and if you will permit me. Madam Speaker, the proclamation of Section 34 happened by way of a meeting held on Thursday, August 9th, 2012. Present were Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Anand Ram Logan, Delmon Baker, Nizam Baksh, Dikoto, Mr. Dukaran, Douglas, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, Dr. Rupert Griffith, McLeod, Dr. Rudal Munilal, Winston Peters, the Honorable Prakash Ramadhar, Glenn Ramadhar Singh, Dr. Suraj Rambachan, Anil Roberts, Chandra Sharma, Herbert Volney, Jack Warner, Vasan Bharat, Marlene Kudre, Emmanuel George, Larry Hawaii, Fazal Karim, Devant Maraj, Jamal Mohammed, Kevin Ramnarayan, Ganga Singh, Bowindradat Tiwari, all present. Madam Speaker, here is what the note says, and I want to read it into the record. This is Cabinet Note number 2119, Proposed Proclamation of the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011. In order to facilitate a seamless operation transition, it is necessary for the Act to be proclaimed in part on August 31st, 2012. In order to inform the need inter alia for the creation of 8 new positions of masters by an amendment to the Supreme Court of Judicature Act. So to create the masters, you have to amend the Supreme Court of Judicature Act. I know that to be true, stick a pin, because this government came and amended the Supreme Court of Judicature Act in 2018, by which we created the post of masters. We then went as a cabinet and gave the authorization for the retention, and as you see today in the article I just read, the masters are in post, operating and being trained. Unstick the pin. Listen to this. This will give authority for the recruitment and appointment of masters of the High Court by the JLSC in order that the Act may be operationalized on its effective date. Listen to this. The Minister of Justice further recommends that Section 32, Section 34, and Schedule 6 of the Act be proclaimed with effect from August 31st, 2012, in order to facilitate the introduction of delay provisions and the early tabling of the rules of court. Let me repeat that. In order to facilitate the introduction of delay provisions. Madam Speaker, this country has been told by every member opposite, starting with Siparia, that Section 34 is the lie at the feet of Herbert Volney because the cabinet was deceived. And I've just read from the cabinet note that the cabinet, every man and woman present in that cabinet, were absolutely informed of the need to operationalize the delay provision. In other words, today, for the first time in the history of this country, the truth is coming out by way of black and white reference to a cabinet note. Everybody knew what they were doing in proclaiming Section 34. And Madam Speaker, I want to say something. I took notice of a publication on the 8th of January 2019 by one Herbert Volney on Facebook. And I want to put this onto the record. Madam Speaker, here is what the honorable person had to say. And I'm going to quote from the print. As for KPB, after she chose to pin a lie upon me to say I misled her cabinet in order to excuse my dismissal as minister over Section 34, I brought to her attention that one of her senior ministers had extracted 4 equal payments in cash, representing 10% of a legitimate $20 million debt owed by the ministry to facilitate payment of the debt. Kamla did nothing about it, even though she was the prime minister. The minister returned to fight a seat, etc., etc. I've said etc. because I don't want to offend the standing orders. But I want to say here today, as I've read from the cabinet note, revealing the truth to this country for the first time, and reading a publication coming from Mr. Volney on the 8th of January, that this particular revelation is an admission, as it appears on the face of it, of a breach of the law, not by Mr. Volney alone. And I note with great concern, not a single person in the media has covered this to date. Not a single person in the media. Perhaps it didn't come to their attention. Well, today it has come to their attention. Madam Speaker, with the stain of Section 34 removed now, in getting to the position of this bill, as it's now rooted, that matter being secured on the record, now having the 2011 Act, we are now able to focus upon why it is ripe and ready for us. Yes, we have courts. Yes, we have masters. Yes, we have rules. But let's look to this. The law itself came into criticism that there was some need for improvement of the 2011 law. And I want to put on record, the bill is 29 clauses long, and in the 29 clauses, we've lifted from all the work we did in the 2017 law, which we came with, but which the opposition refused to support, and in respect of which there was some criticism. We went back, we listened, we came back, we operationalized in the meanwhile, but we came back to do the following. First of all, in Clause 3, we proposed to amend Section 3 of the Act. We're adding in essential definitions. We're adding in a definition for an either-way offense for the first time, because the 2011 Act did not clarify the 3 categories of treatment for charges. Of course, you can be on indictment. You can have a summary matter, but there's an in-between of an either way. What happens if the prosecution or the defense can go both summarily or indictably? So we've added this definition in. We've added in very critically the definition of prosecutor. The 2011 Act only allowed for the DPP to prosecute, recognizing that the DPP does 5% of prosecution and the TTPS does 95% of prosecution, recognizing that we have a commissioner of police who has already stated that he is reforming the prosecutorial arm of the TTPS. We have added in that a prosecutor includes a police prosecutor. And I can tell you now that this government is far ahead in the Ministry of the Attorney General in crystallizing what we call a national prosecution agency, as we are about to birth a public defender system on the other side. Madam Speaker, I go to Clause 4 of the bill. Very importantly, Madam Speaker, we are allowing for computer and electronic devices to be secured, not on belief, but on suspicion. We're adding in computer and electronic devices. Why, Madam Speaker? Because, Madam Speaker, the vast amount of corruption evidence that we have found as a government and that we are aware as a government is to be found on electronic devices. And therefore it is necessary, in anticipation of the cases to come and in speaking to the law generally, that we cause an amendment to Section 5 of this Act by Clause 4. Madam Speaker, we are also allowing for things which are seized to not have to go into the DPP's possession. You can take photographs, you can have a report of what you seize, it can be kept in safekeeping so that you are not pinned down to cumbersome mechanisms. And we cause amendments in that regard by having the procedures for detention and photographs to be managed so that evidence doesn't have to become a cumbersome exercise which detains the progress of a bill. In Clause 5, Madam Speaker, we allow for the use of forms for the arrest warrant so that there can be certainty and precision in the arrest warranting position. In Clause 6, we allow for the mechanism for summonses to also be set out in a scheduled form. And very importantly, Madam Speaker, in Clause 7 of the bill, we cause an amendment to Section 8 of the Act, and we are saying that a master should have the ability to consider the nature and seriousness of offenses, the likelihood of the accused evading summonses, character, antecedents, etc., and other factors when we're looking at the issuance of an arrest warrant. We are therefore improving the certainty in the language to avoid the ambiguity in the exercise of the law. In other words then, more people will get caught more certainly by this precision of language. Madam Speaker, we then cause in Clause 7 and in Clause 8, and a very important addition of a new Clause 8 capital A, and in causing the 8 capital A, we are allowing for the first time for the disaggregation between indictable treatment, either way treatment, and summary treatment. And let me break it down quite simply into the language that people will understand through you, Madam Speaker. If you are charged indictably, you come before a master, and if there's sufficient evidence, you go straight to the High Court. If you have an either way offense, the prosecutor must elect which way you're going. Indictable, up to the High Court. Summary, down to the Magistrates' Court. Then we have also calculated what happens if you're charged with an indictable or an either way, and in both cases, you also have a summary offense. What we do is we prescribe that the summary offense is to follow the route that is chosen for indictable or either way, quite simply put. In other words then, we've streamlined the approach so that there is no ambiguity in the process, and that is to be found by the proposals that we bring for the inclusion of a new Section 8A via the Clause 8 of the bill. Madam Speaker, in Clause 9, we propose amendments as to how the arrest warrant is issued, and we very importantly, Madam Speaker, in Clause 10, allow an amendment to Section 10 so that it is not only the magistrate who exercises the ability in respect of a summons or in respect of a warrant, but that we also include the clerk of the peace. I must remind that with the criminal division and traffic division, we are going to have the clerks of the peace called the magistracy registrar and clerk of the peace. There may be a need to tidy this up at committee stage. I'm just flagging that in Clause 10. It allows now for a widening of the system because we are for the first time making sure qualified lawyers who sit as magistracy registrars and clerks of the peace can handle warrant and summons issues. Madam Speaker, I go to Clause 11. In Clause 11, this is the heart and soul of this law. Clause 11 amends Section 11. Section 11 introduces, of course, the scheduling order. Basically, you get before a master. The master's chief purpose is to case manage. In case managing, the master sets a scheduling order, and the scheduling order tells you when you come to court, what the prosecution must do, what the defense must do, what the police must do, what the registrar must do. And the prescriptive steps are set out there in Section 11 of the Act, and we seek to improve it, in particular by amending Section 11 via Clause 11 and the introduction of H Roman 2A as to what the TTPS must do, so that as the Commissioner of Police improves the TTPS prosecution management, we can actually have certainty in the law. Clause 12 amends Section 12 of the Act. Section 12, we are very importantly tidying up the either-way offenses and that the prosecutor chooses which way you go. We are also making sure as to how the law is to be read when you're treating summarily, or if another law prescribes an offense as to what should happen summarily. We're saying where there's no position in the other law, so let's say you have the Insurance Act, it says something is a summary offense, it says it's $150,000. In default of that kind of prescription, we then come down to what the minimum is, which is $50,000 or 10 years. So we fill the lacuna where the law fails to provide for an offense. Clause 13 treats with Section 13, where we improve the issues to treat with alibi. Clause 14 treats with Section 15, and we are very importantly including a very essential improvement where the masters of the view that there's an irregularity, illegality, or defect or error, that would not hinder the progress of the matter because it can be treated with. That, without prescription in the fashion that we have recommended, would cause ambiguity and delay by way of legal challenge. So we have included a new 15.3 by way of Clause 14. Madam Speaker, I turn next to Clause 15, which seeks to amend Section 18 of the Act. It's just a tidy up. We no longer have the Commissioner of Prisons. We're treating with the keeper. In Clause 16, we are amending Section 19 of the Act. This is the essential part of the Act, which is the sufficiency hearing. And we are importantly adding in a new subclause 5A, so that where there's a failure to file any documents by the accused within a specific time frame, it shall not affect the power of a master to proceed or otherwise manage. This is critical to break the back of abuse in the courts, where defense attorneys don't act with alacrity and don't have the backup of sanctions in the law, because it can't be only the criminal proceedings rules that have the sanctions. The parent law must have the sanctions. Again, this has been blessed by the stakeholders themselves, starting with the expert advice that we sought and received at the ministry. Clause 17, Madam Speaker, amends Section 20 of the Act. We are adding a degree of proportionality. In Section 20, as it was originally crafted in 2011, we only allowed for the prosecutor to give submissions. And if so, a master in conducting a sufficiency hearing shall review witness statements and documentary evidence, and previously it said hear submissions from the prosecutor and the accused if submissions are made in a particular way. What we are saying now is that we're giving either side, the prosecutor or the accused, an opportunity by way of submissions orally or in writing, and that's important, or in writing, because the judge can order that, to show cause why the order should not be made. This allows for proportionality and balance, but allows the judge the ability to direct the writing, therefore removing the abuse of oral submissions, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Clause 18 amends Section 21, and we are treating with a lacuna in the law there because we had provided for conditions for witness statements, and we are very importantly looking at the admissibility of evidence. There was a lacuna because it treated with children who were under 14 years of age. So we had, in light of the improvements that we made to the children's laws, we had to put the caveat as to children under the age of 14. Madam Speaker, we've also made reference to the Children's Act amendments, in particular where the child is to be assisted and the statements are to be supervised in a proportionate and balanced fashion, and we do that by the inclusion of a new subclause 3A. Madam Speaker, we do the same for interpretation. We do the same for people that are illiterate. We do the same for people that have disabilities. Madam Speaker, we go next to Clause 19, and very importantly, we are amending Section 22. Now, Section 22 was the place where at the sufficiency hearing, the prosecutor wishes to adduce further evidence from a witness. We allowed for that to happen, and the prosecutor had 7 days to file, etc. We're now providing, by a replacement of Section 22, by Clause 19, we're saying a master on application by the prosecutor or the accused. So we're adding the accused in for proportional balance because it would be unfair and unjust to limit it only to the prosecution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Clause 20 is a pièce de la résistance of this particular bill. Section 23 of the Act had something which was critically important. It said, for the purposes of a sufficiency hearing, a prima facie case against the accused is made out where a master finds that the evidence taken at its highest is such that a jury properly directed could return a verdict of guilty. This introduction of a defined prima facie case, in keeping with the standard in R.V. Galbraith, which is a particular case arising in the context of a no-case submission. In R.V. Galbraith, Madam Speaker, the bar was set extremely high. That is 1981 Two All England Law Reports at page 1060. In that case, if we were to stick with a prima facie case, we would be making sure that the master had to consider in some circumstances the factual evidence. A master can never consider in a preliminary sufficiency hearing construct the sufficiency of evidence, because that's a matter for the jury or judge, and the standard is too high. So we have specifically returned to the concept of sufficient evidence so that the standard is not set too high. Madam Speaker, I go to the improvements now by clause 20, which affects the new section 23, which is now tied to section 25 and 24. And effectively, we are managing the process of what happens where the magistrate, if involved, or where the master, if involved, is to decide if there is evidence or no evidence in the context of a sufficiency hearing to go forward to the High Court or to the Magistrates' Court. Madam Speaker, we have caused further amendments. We have gone in clause 23 to cause amendments by the introduction of a new 26A. Very importantly, a material improvement. We're catering for the circumstances where you have lost your documents. And we're saying that the registrar can certify those documents where there has been a sufficiency hearing or an initial hearing. And that can actually be a solution to having to go through difficult hoops in treating with evidence. We have added in provisions in a new 26B for fresh evidence, and we've added in a new 26C for the DPP to refer a case to be dealt with summarily, because cases may be such that they've gone indictably, but in preserving the power of the DPP in Section 90 of the Constitution, we've specifically carved out that the DPP can direct that the matter go instead on a summary basis. Madam Speaker, clause 24 treats with an amendment to 27. 27.2, as I said before, in analyzing and in giving the truth on Section 34 for the first time, 27.2 is where you can apply for the judge to consider discharging on the ground of delay. And we've sought to improve that, Madam Speaker. Very importantly, in amending subclause 3, we are taking care of what I will call the Marcia Ayres Caesar example. Section 23.8 of the preliminary inquiry current law is deficient insofar as it does not allow the DPP, for any inability or any other compelling reason, to forget a preliminary inquiry and just go on with an indictment. As a result of the decision coming out of the Honorable Madam Justice Gobin on an interpretation summons which I as Attorney General presented and which she held was entirely proper to have done, the Honorable Judge's ratio has led us to causing an amendment by the introduction of the ability, the DPP's ability to move directly to indictment for the inability or any other compelling reason of a magistrate in those circumstances. Madam Speaker, clause 25 amends clause 28. Now that we have preliminary inquiry moving and we have proclaimed the plea discussion arrangements, clause 25 treats with section 28. We expect more guilty pleas. As the weight of the law comes upon people in providing for guilty plea circumstances, section 28 is amended in the fashion that we now bring. Clause 26 introduces safeguards in the guilty plea prospect by putting in a new section 28A, 28B, 28C, where we treat with bail issues for surety, recognizance, etc. in certain circumstances, and a new 28D, where we're treating with bail and the power to revoke or require a higher bail. 28E is the place of commitment. Madam Speaker, we are treating with amendments via Clause 27 to Section 30 of the Act, which is the binding over of witnesses to attend trial. And we are improving that by insisting that the DPP's time limits and the ability to subpoena witnesses who you want to appear at trial are provided for in the law, both for the prosecution and for the defense. Clause 28, Madam Speaker, amends Section 21, and this is on the rule of publication. We're making sure to tighten it up as it relates to children, now that we've done that whole host of children's amendments. And then, Madam Speaker, Clause 29 moves on to treat with the inclusion of schedules, and Clause 30, more schedules, and how we treat with the amendments. Is it 354, you said, Madam Speaker? 352. 1 minute and a half. Madam Speaker, having traversed the bill, its proportionality, its improvement, and having, for the first time in 8 years of a PNM moving from opposition in 2010 into governance now, as we approach 2019's full run, Madam Speaker, we have heard this country receive for the first time a confession from the last Minister of Justice, Mr. Volney, in print form, that the leader of the opposition knew certain facts. We have seen the cabinet note that demonstrates that the entire UNC bench, many of whom are still sitting here, knew that they were introducing the delay provisions. And, Madam Speaker, I want to say, that decision cost the taxpayers $14 million in legal fees to go to the Privy Council and back on Section 34. And that is only in the AG's office. There was much more. Madam Speaker, this bill is proportionate. It is ready for operationalization. We have done the work. I look forward to hearing what my learned colleagues have to say opposite. I hope that someone opposite will have the honesty that Mr. Justice Volney, now Mr. Volney, has had or appears to have in his publications. I want to tell you that this matter will be referred elsewhere once certain things are double-checked. And Madam Speaker, that's no small issue for this country. In those circumstances, I beg to move.
Honourable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Administration of Justice, Indictable Proceedings Act 2011, Act number 20 of 2011, be now read a second time. Member for St. Augustine.
A new year has begun, but the old games have continued. With all the regaled headlines of the campaign has started, let me just put on record, the campaign has never stopped. They have a most noble friend from San Fernando West suggest that for the first time this country would have heard what happened in the cabinet of the People's Partnership is shocking. More than any lightning or thunder, that this big Section 34 that has been the bogey of, and what put them in office in their mind, will return them to office, that they only looked at that cabinet note recently, that they only looked at it and brought it to this parliament today. Look, let's get real and let's get serious. Section 34, it's about time we truly appreciate what it was, how it came to be, and who paid the price for it, and those who are responsible who walked away like Pontius Pilate, wash their hands of any responsibility for that ignoble, on reflection, Section 34. My friend has gone heavily in now regaling the goodly Justice Volney, now as a champion and a paragon, and as a, what shall I say, an arbiter of what happened, and ignoring all of the evidence, all of the facts, ignoring even, milady, your Hansard. On the record, there was this bill that was brought before this parliament that this House deliberated upon, and there was a Section 34, the original Section 34, which said, in effect, that if after 10 years after a prosecution has begun, if the prosecution could not proceed with it, any accused person could apply to the court for the matter to be discharged. In this very chamber, I do recall the member for Diego Martin, what is it? Northeast.
Yeah.
Yes, brilliant man, suggested that we move
Good with figures.
the 10-year period to 7. And one could understand that, because 7 years with a matter hanging over your head, and if they can't proceed, one could reasonably say that is too much punishment. Look, it's been 3 years under this government, and look at punishment already. So that, but we resisted it, and the record will show that the Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, looked to her Minister of Legal Affairs, who happened to be myself, and we insisted, no, it must be no less, and it should remain at 10. And I want my friend, who I have the greatest admiration and respect for many years, and it still continues surprisingly till today, that bill, having been passed, went to the Senate, in which something mysterious occurred. I shall tell you. The Section 34, that made inherent good sense, because there were and I'll take some of the figures from a learned friend, that there were thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases before the court that were not being proceeded with. There was, you know, the old, my friend, Minister of National Security, right, the old China bottle example, nothing moving, it just choke up, and something needed to be done. It was a robust effort. And all of us here who are deliberated in this lower house to pass that bill knew that something needed to be changed. And the partnership government took the initiative to do so. And the learned Attorney General, I am sure in the candor that he is sometimes accustomed to, will say that a lot of the work that has come before this Parliament in this term under his government, the foundation had already been well not prepared, but more than foundation, there were other things already prepared. So you just had to take this, and bring it here. And own it, no problem. Once the country is improved, we are very happy for it. But let me get back to this mysterious midnight issue of Section 34. My lady, something horrible happened, because it has been demonized. And therefore, we now assume that Section 34, the first iteration that we all passed here in the lower house, and then what happened in the upper house, and the Attorney General is, what shall I say, uniquely placed to help us as to how that 10-year from the date of charge moved to a whole different dynamic. That 10 years after the offense, member for Caribbean Central, if after 10 years after the offense you could not have been prosecuted, they could not then prosecute you. Big, big difference. Let me tell you why. If 10 years from the date of charge you couldn't be prosecuted, no problem, because the DPP, the police, everybody had their chance to prosecute you. But if 10 years after the offense itself, you have not been prosecuted, you couldn't be prosecuted, it means then that certain things could have occurred. Criminal activity, especially white-collar crimes, could occur, and only unearthed 5, 7, 10, 11 years after. And if that happened, you could not have been prosecuted, effectively putting in place a statutory limitation on criminal activity for prosecution. And I asked the Attorney General to explain, please, because he was there in the Senate when this whole dynamic change, completely different, was amended, and it was brought down to this House on the floor. Member for Laventil West, it was brought on the floor. And in a quick moment, we voted on it. All of us who were here 35 members of this honorable House on that day voted. And I shall not trouble you with a full list of all of the government members who voted, but I shall call the names of those who now occupy government seats and who were in opposition of the day and who voted on this Section 34 that has now been deemed the worst thing that ever happened. And I agree. If the intent was impure, whatever the original purpose was has been demolished and replaced with something that really, maybe I should hold off and explain a little bit more. But let me just call some names, Madam Speaker.
Refresh my memory.
I am singing for nothing, I'm singing for the truth.
Right, yeah.
And if democracy is to survive in this country, must get rid of the falsehoods and return to truth. Propaganda is cheap. Propaganda is cheap. But when you go to a point where you demonize anything that stands in opposition to you, whether they call it seditious, treasonous, or whatever, then we must go and return to the truth. Who voted for the Section 34 that they say is the worst thing that ever happened? Let me call some names.
Don't take on Lavendale West.
On the Hansard, I looked it up just to reconfirm. And I took a note, and if I stand corrected, so be it. But on the 18th of November, 2011, members of the then opposition who voted for that bill that included Section 34, milady, MP MacDonald, my dear friend,
For a Spain South?
MP Gopi Schoon, MP Hospitales, MP Thomas, MP Brown, MP Jeffrey, you might remember them, MP Hippolyte, MP Imbert,
Notice?
and Prime Minister, I mean no disrespect because I'm sure like I voted for it myself. In that moment, 2020 vision is a powerfully good thing.
Yeah.
And the honorable leader of the opposition, MP Rowley, voted for Section 34.
Yeah. Repeat that, repeat that.
Now, let me make something abundantly clear so that we could get, a real essence, this bogeyman, Section 34, that they march the streets for.
Very.
No, 34. Let's say it and understand it and understand what the truth is.
Right.
Do you know, Madam Speaker, that is Section 34 would, in the normal course of events, would have become law without a whimper, without a squeak. But because it came up earlier, and certain personalities in this country rushed out and said, look, I am the beneficiary now of an effective pardon, Mr. Prime Minister. It caused a major uproar, and rightly so. And rightly so. But in a matter of a couple of months, the law would have been proclaimed in any event in totality. And this is where we are at. So good people voted for something they thought was good. But in effecting it, certain personalities arose, and therefore their names poisoned the entire process. So that in that cabinet note you will find, on the day that the note was, and for those who don't know, there are two aspects of it. A note is brought, and then it is, after it is agreed to, it comes up later on for confirmation. Who was not present in that cabinet that day? Who was not present in the cabinet that day? I only ask. Who was the Minister of Justice whose note it was?
He was missing.
So I say no more. But an important legislative change, I ask. And if you're a minister responsible for it, you bring the note, it is passed. But for the confirmation, are you there? I make no insinuation. I just ask. So that is the section 34. And I hope I've added some level of clarity to it. Look, I had appeared many times before the Honorable Justice Volney as defense counsel, and I shall not go into the statements made over a period of time, but I'm handed a note here where he had taken full blame for it, section 34. And now I'm hearing, whatever, it doesn't matter. Maybe we do truly have a responsible press in not printing and putting out everything that they hear or see or say. So the campaign has not stopped. So we start off this new year, 2019, and Prime Minister, with all due respect, I looked at your both presentations and I say, brilliant politics, magnificent in the way it is presented. Your anger is well placed so that you rile up those who will believe you and condemn all those who you have condemned as corrupt. But I ask this question, if you are serious, and it was true, that the last government for which I belong participated in corruption, why have you not implemented procurement legislation to the state? Why have you not, when everything has been prepared for you, it is put before you to implement this thing? How many? It's 3 years and how much?
4. 3.5.
Your term is at an end effectively, and we have not seen procurement. I believe you are an honorable man, Mr. Prime Minister.
7 board debate.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes. I truly do. I do not believe you participate in these low-level things. But where then, on the agenda that many voted for the PNM, that you would bring campaign and party finance reform? Where is that legislation? I have made it 1,000 times and 1,001 I shall say. Unless this country sees the implementation of these two things, the most important being procurement legislation and the implementation of campaign and party finance reform, governments will come, governments will go, and corruption will remain. Because it is a simple equation. Logic dictates. Common sense says that if people are financing election campaigns, somebody has to pay for it. And as noble as some may wish to give a little contribution because they believe in your policies, it has become nothing short of big business. And therefore, in that effect, many of those who contribute to political campaigns are the people who are given contracts. And in that is the nasty seed of corruption that we must eradicate. At least make the effort to do so. And you have it in your hand. We gave you, the People's Partnership gave you procurement legislation. Remember, for Chaguanas West, I think it was a private motion some years back. 2006, we are 13 years after, to implement campaign and party finance reform. To the good honor of the People's Partnership. Say what you want. Say what you want, but look what we did. Look at what we did. We produced that tool. The very thing that has been brushed on to every member of the last government and the present members of the opposition and future members of anything other than PNM is that they corrupt. But if that is true, what legislation have you ever brought to deal with corruption? Integrity in public life, did you bring that? Yeah, she come in to stop.
Justin, I've given you, I think, quite a lot of breadth. And I now caution you with respect to Standing Order 48.1, and I ask you to come back to the matter at hand.
I am dealing directly with the legislation before us, and let me show you why. And the theme is consistent and real. Madam Speaker, if we are serious about dealing with all crimes, I ask the dear friend, the Attorney General, why is it Section 24 is so deficient? And I will read it. Section 27(3) of the Act is amended in paragraph B. I shall not read that. In B, by inserting after paragraph B the following paragraphs. BA, where the accused is charged with an offense involving serious or complex fraud. I pause. Serious or complex fraud. Is this legislation created for one case? Or are we interested? Maybe when I read it in totality, I'll put things in better perspective. BB, where a magistrate was unable to complete a preliminary inquiry before the coming into force of this act, or a master is unable to complete a sufficiency hearing because of his 1, physical or mental infirmity, 2, resignation, 3, retirement, 4, death, or 5, inability for any other compelling reason, and the evidence filed before the master discloses, in the opinion of the Director of Public Prosecutions, sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial. Maybe I missed it, and I'm sure the very, very thorough Attorney General will correct me if I'm wrong, and I will give way. Why did you not include all offenses? Why did you bring this section to deal with serious frauds only? So that if a court cannot finish, for whatever reason, by retirement, and I've gone through them, that you could listen and now look at the real politics in this. And the evidence filed before the master discloses, in the opinion of the DPP, sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial. You know what this means? Without calling a name, a certain case can be put before a master and you will get a trial in an election year. That is what this is about. It cannot be otherwise, because if it was that it was serious, and we've seen the ignominy of what happened when the chief magistrate was appointed a judge. And there are many other cases where magistrates now have moved now, and I warn Mr. Attorney General, you'll need to put on your working boots and bring on the most brilliant minds you have, and the wonderful staff from the Ministry of Justice which you dismantled, to deal with this one. Magistrates have been promoted to masters, yes, with pending cases before them. Let me not be distracted by that. That's another, as I say, another story for another day. But it will follow closely on this one. So you have a situation where it is now open to you, and I'll ask for the amendment. Attorney General, I want to give way to you. Is there a provision anywhere that permits for other offenses, or only this one? So that you could put it before a master on and therefore, Section 24, complex or serious fraud. Right? Is there a provision anywhere that duplicates this or can take its place? Yes. Where? Yes.
Yeah, under the existing preliminary inquiry law, Section 23 itself, complex fraud is there. But these are circumstances where the sufficiency hearing will only be held if the DPP requests it to be held for those matters. So it is actually in the vein of the existing law, the existing legislation in Section 23 and 23A of the existing Act.
Right. I'm most grateful, and therefore that brings me directly onto the purpose. If there's existing law dealing, right? Why you bring this? Yeah. You're abolishing it, but you're including this one only. Look, I know the people you work with in the ministry, first class, first rate. First rate, they don't miss things so. Something wrong here. Something wrong here. So let me repeat that this piece of legislation, clothed in all the beautiful nuances that we're going to get things rolling, and you know, after the what? After the lightning is thunder, if I catch it tonight? Yeah? What? Yeah. You can't remember that song? Yeah. If I catch it, I just done it. Yeah. After all of that, this is the poison pill, which may be a good thing. I want to tell you, I am not saying it bad. But if it is deliberate that we're using this parliament now, forget about TV stations and hosting political meetings and call it address to the nation. But they're using the parliament to politic. Well, then we have a different thing coming. Because we have seen over a period of time the effort of bringing legislation, bad legislation, so that the opposition in good conscience cannot support it. And then you say the opposition what?
Patriotic.
The game, your petticoat show in chief. The game is almost up. As you walk through the streets, people are telling you, even I made this statement over and over, and I still mean it. I want you all to succeed, but no matter what help all you get, all you just cannot do it. Because when you succeed, we all succeed. When you fail, we all pay the price. Oh, Lord. We all pay the price. But luckily, it didn't change. Now, I do not know if I shall return to our parliament. I really don't know. But what I do know is this country deserves far better than what has gone under it. No. So, here we are. I was on the point that this piece of thing here called, the DPP and whatever my friend has just said, I'll have to analyze that because it doesn't make all the sense, but I trust that he's right and I'm wrong. That the evidence filed before the master discloses, in the opinion of the Director of Prosecution, sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial. Of course, it's the DPP who say charge. So it's one of those circular arguments. If the DPP is of the view, and I will read it, that the evidence filed before the master discloses, in the opinion of the DPP, who decided to charge again? On the evidence, member for San Fernando East, you're a good man. Who decides to lay the charge? On the evidence they have? DPP. So if he decides there is sufficient evidence, police lay charge, but you know full well under the Corruption Act, you have to get the approval of the DPP. You don't know that? Right? No, sometimes I take so much for granted. Forgive me, I really do take so much for granted. Right? And I may appear to simplify things on the basis that many who hold office know these things, but they don't, clearly. The DPP decides on these matters. Integrity in public life and a host of things. So that the DPP will decide, and there will be some cases, of course, where the police will charge and the DPP say, what is this? Nole pros. But we're dealing here with serious fraud. Right? So the DPP who would have participated in deciding the charge and navigating it through the court system will decide that the evidence discloses sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial. So this really is about putting a case on trial for an election. That's what we're dealing with here. That is the nana of the situation, to quote Mr. Vernon de Lima, and we cannot avoid it. So be it. It's about time that people who do wrong pay the price. I agree with that 100%, but do not manipulate the process. My friend, the swiftness like lightning to stick in something and it registered emotionally but not intellectually, because when you think about it, you realize, whoa, something terribly wrong here. Gary Griffith, Commissioner of Police, because my friend introduced it. Many of us on this side support him. We want him to succeed. We did not vote for him because, Madam Speaker, obviously, and if we look back on the Hansard, truth again, that will burn you. The truth is that the system was manipulated. If recommendations were made, and if something wrong with the system, which I agree with, member for Laventille West, I sat with you on the Joint Select for National Security, and remember, one of the positions we took is that the leadership of the police needed a face, it needed a personality, so that when they call a name, people must shake like in the old days. They must be afraid of. And there we have it in Gary Griffith, the creation of the People's Partnership. He participated, and I will say this, we support the work of the police in suppressing crime, but we do not support the subversion of a process in the parliament. So once again, you're doing it in such a way that those who have a sense of history and the significant honor of parliament cannot participate in a charade, and then you blame us, we didn't support Gary. But if you had done it well and you had done it right, and if the system was good, fix the system. Fix the system. And you won't do that because everything is blame, 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 blame. Blame, 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 blame. If you really mind your business, you will see the truth.
As I said earlier, I know we had a little break, and we may still be in free spirit mode, but we're back here now.
Everything here is.
So, please, every member, any time we have left, familiarize yourself with Standing Order 53. And I'm sure we'll have a very good sitting. Member for St. Augustine.
Yeah. You know, I want to say how grateful when we were in government in the partnership we had been for the support of the then opposition. I think in nearly every bit of legislation you supported. Congratulations. 3/5 majority, you're there. But guess what? A friend of mine told me, he said, oh, you don't know these people, you know, Chief. You think they really would have supported you if you couldn't have done it without them? I pause. 3/5 is how many?
26.
Partnership at 29. So that as brilliant politically as you are, you know what? You can't beat them. Join it. So therefore you would say, I love my country. I supported everything of the partnership government. But guess what? If we had 24, it would have been a different kettle of fish. But I congratulate you because I love intelligence.
And it's good law too.
It's good law.
I'll comment on that. Almost all, and there's no perfect law. I mean, I had a very honored post and I'm grateful for it. And we make mistakes sometimes. But almost all the law we brought had a purpose and a definite intent to fix Trinidad and Tobago. But when Section 34 polluted it all, you had everybody got a little shy, a little bit shy, and you back off on certain things. And I congratulate the Attorney General for bringing things that we created so that we will move forward. But, Madam Speaker, there are certain issues I would like to raise back on the bill itself.
Honourable Member for St. Augustine, your original time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes to complete your presentation.
I'll be most grateful to you.
Proceed.
Thank you so much. Mr. Attorney General, as busy as you are, I want you to take note of this, my friend. I understand, and I could be wrong, Mr. Attorney General, I would like you to pay a little attention, just for this one, because you may need to investigate it. I was informed, I could be wrong, Member for Laventille West, you two please help, that there are 17 vacancies in the magistracy. No? Well, if I am right, I have also been made to understand that there have been multiple applications for those vacancies, if there are any. I stand corrected. I don't like to hear hearsay. I don't peddle in it. But if it is true that there are, even if not 17, several vacancies available in the magistracy, that those vacancies, there have been applicants from the office of the DPP to fill. I tell you, I feel sorry for members of the staff of the DPP. Their workload is really, really, really overwhelming at times, very difficult. And notwithstanding the People's Partnership approval, and check your cabinet note for this, I think it was about 80 positions. I could be wrong. Whatever it is. The People's Partnership had approved the hiring of tens of DPP officers. And for whatever reason, because I understand, Member for Laventille West, there were issues of accommodation and they couldn't quite hire. But there is already a terrible shortage in the DPP's department. And if those who are able to apply because of the qualifications, I think it's 7 years to be a magistrate in practice, then the best, most experienced of your group will leave you. I'm not condemning the younger ones, but remember for San Fernando East, Laventille West, Minister of National Security know full well that the brightest of a lot is not sometimes sufficient enough. You need experience. And if we are going to denude the DPP's office, and they're entitled to ask for promotion, they're entitled to do it because of the hard work and commitment and credibility, then we're going to have a problem in the DPP's department. And we need to look at that. Don't just create, as we say, they got a piece of wood from the boat on this side to fix a hole there and create a hole here, because we'll end up sinking still. So that is something I ask you to look into, please. And if it is true, then we need to try and accelerate a fix on that. Now, Madam Speaker, and the Attorney General, you gave us a definition of prima facie in a professorial manner, and I am grateful for it. But is there a standard for sufficiency of evidence? Where is it? And I take my seat.
The standard for sufficiency of evidence is actually the existing law, the Act number 12 of the 1917 Act, Preliminary Inquiries Act 1201.
Yeah.
That is on a sufficiency standard.
Yeah.
And it was also in your 2014 Committal Proceedings Act.
Right. Yeah. But you are now replacing sufficiency. You're taking up prima facie and putting sufficiency.
Prima facie was only in the 2011 bill.
Prima facie has always been the law. For committal, always. So that it's sufficient for a prima facie case to be made up, but you're removing prima facie. So therefore, and I Ms. Elder, I have the world of respect for her, and I am sure she would have looked into it, so therefore I will make some inquiry on that to find out this sufficiency of evidence thing. Would it not lead possibly to an arbitrary exercise? Because what might be sufficient for you, Attorney General, may not be sufficient for the Minister of National Security, as an example. Or any right-thinking person. And therefore, the law, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Chapter 1201, 23.2, where a magistrate is of the opinion on consideration of the evidence of any statement of the accused, there is sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial, the magistrate shall commit. Right. So that's the existing law.
Yes. And that says nothing more. Because it is has always been by case law definition interpreted on the basis of prima facie.
Only for discharge.
No.
23.1.
We'll disagree. That's why we have court. Prima facie means something. You are removing prima facie and replacing it with sufficient. As nebulous. Yes.
You would be so stupid to have.
Yeah, no case submission, right? There must be at least a prima facie case. If there's no prima facie case, you make a no case and you walk.
You will use him as a lawyer.
But sufficiency now leaves too much of an elastic approach to the law's interpretation or the court's interpretation. And therefore, the suspicion that many have that they're campaigning into the law and into the courts for the purpose of, what shall I say, gaining popularity through abuse is now facilitated by the elasticity that you're introducing into the definition of the law. Now, I want to say, many years ago, efforts were made, and we've seen improvement from the partnership, and you've built upon it in terms of the provision for electronic recording. And I will repeat this every time I get the opportunity. One of the greatest delays in any trial, remember for Toko Sangran, you know this, you prosecuted in the criminal courts. Very able prosecutor, and you should remain there. You would know that one of the biggest delays was the taking of the notes, longhand. It's a compliment. You don't even know when you get one. Yes. So, is the long hand? Long hand like. He's never been able. So you able. Mr. You are not on the table, from table hand. Yes. The long hand note taking is the biggest delay. And after whether it's a summary offense or an indictable offense, the preliminary inquiry, and the worst thing for defense counsel I can tell you is when you hear a bill up a witness and you're going to drop the question that will break them. Court say, hold on. I didn't get that. Repeat your question again there for me. That was such a delay and still is. Notwithstanding the facilitation in the High Court for electronic recording. Do you know High Court judges still, Member Farima, they don't want technology?
Honorable members, it is now 4:30. We shall take the suspension now, and we shall resume at 5 o'clock, at which time the honorable member for St. Augustine would have 7 minutes and 38 seconds left. This House is now suspended.